everybody. Welcome back to the Ultimate Tribute Band podcast. My name is Roger. Good to see you again. I'm excited to talk to these guys. We've got almost a full band here today, so I'm excited. We're looking forward to talking to these guys. We got Jim Frazier, we got Keith, we got Duncan. They are from Child's Anthem, which is a tribute to the music of Toto, one of my all-time favorite bands. And if you're a musician, probably one of yours too. Just a bunch of great talented people in that band. And so it's nice to see a tribute to one of those great 70s, 80s bands. And so, Jim, you're in Nashville, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Keith, you're where?
I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm visiting family. But
Gotcha. Okay. And
I live in Franklin, Tennessee as well.
Okay. Gotcha. So you're on the road right now with the family, but you live in Tennessee as well. Duncan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in Franklin. As is Keith, yes.
Okay, gotcha. So all local guys. What's your role in the band, Duncan?
I play bass.
Okay, Keith?
Mm-hmm.
Lead vocals.
Lead vocals. This is our singer, man. Okay, nice. Yeah. And Jim, tell me about you and how you started this band. I'm assuming this is your project you put together?
Well, actually, no.
Okay.
It's Duncan's project that he put together.
Okay, well, then you know what, Keith? Thanks for your time. Duncan, let's go ahead.
Go ahead, let Duncan
whoever our spokesperson is, talk to me about how the band started.
Well, I can speak to that.
Sure.
We are sort of another version of what Toto was, which most of the guys in the band are full-time recording musicians in Nashville, which is obviously a wonderful place to do such a thing. And so forever, certain circles of people who would be together on sessions, in between songs, someone's always starting to play a song. 99% of the time. See what I did there? It was a Toto song, and this goes on for years. So sometime around 2017, we started. Myself and a couple other guys started saying, we need to put a tribute band together, because tribute bands were obviously, as you, Roger, you feature them all, they're becoming very popular. So it seemed like a really great idea at the time, but then you run into the brick wall of saying, who is going to sing this stuff? You got to be able to do the Bobby Kimball thing. Who in the world is going to do that? And so my wife mentioned to a friend of hers that I had this vision of having this Toto band. And her friend said, well, there's a guy that lives in our neighborhood that says he sang with Toto. And I thought, right, okay. And so not believing that at all, right? So I get the guy's name, who of course is Keith, and I find out how to get in touch with Keith. And so in the process, I do what everybody does. I go online, I Googled it, I looked for him on YouTube, and
Sure.
There's Keith on YouTube in a live performance singing, of course, Hold the Line. And it was spot on, and it was magnificent, and I just about had a freak out. I thought, it's the guy. There can be no one else. And so I figure out how to get in touch with Keith, and I asked him if anyone is interested in pursuing this Toto tribute band, and he very graciously said yes. And the rest is our little history. It's been fantastic. And Keith is our real link to the band. Obviously, he was with the band in the 80s. And how much more realistic can you get than that? I mean, what a great tribute, to bring that full circle. And he gets to sing all these songs again. It's been fantastic.
That's amazing. It's obviously Nashville is a town that is just literally crawling with super talented pros, folks that are making a living, maybe not names or faces but these are all people that are making a living making music. And you may not know them, but you've heard them. Most likely. So Keith, so give us your background a little bit, if you don't mind. Give us kind of your story and how you ended up here and what you were doing back in the 80s.
Well, I grew up in Louisiana, as Bobby Kimball did, and we started singing at a club in Benton, Louisiana, which is Bobby's hometown. And there was a club called the Texas Pelican, which is in Benton, Louisiana, but right across the border from Texas. And it was a big arena type, big warehouse type club with a round stage and a wall in between. And and had two bands with one band would play for an hour, then the stage would rotate, the other band would play for an hour. I was the lead singer in one band, and Bobby Kimball was the lead singer in the other band. And we became friends because we liked each other singing. And Bobby said, one of these days we're going to be in a band together. So it worked out, and Bobby got the gig with Toto. And then after the first album, during the first tour, he calls me and he says, you got a copy of the album? I said, yeah. He goes, learn it. So we have this guy named, well, Tom Kelly was singing with them on their first tour. And Tom just got signed to a record deal with Infinity Records. And he wanted more money and stuff. And Bobby said, man, we got this. I know this guy down in Louisiana that can do the job. So they came to Lafayette, and I went to the show. Bobby was kind of standoffish, so I followed him to the next show was in New Orleans. And Bobby said, man, the guy kind of changed his attitude. We didn't want to fire him in the middle of the tour. So next time we go on the road, you'll be first in line. Yeah, thank you, Bobby. And about a month later, he calls me, and he goes, man, he said, you got a tape of you singing live or something? And he said, yeah. He said, it didn't have to be studio quality, because he said, the guys from Three Dog Night here are looking for a singer. So I went. I didn't want to just send him anything, so I went in the studio and recorded 3 songs and did all the vocals, lead vocals, background vocals. And so he called me up and said, man, he said, the guys want to hear you. They want to. You got no. Can you come to California? I said, well, I got enough money to stay for about 2 weeks. So I went to. I flew to California, and the next morning, Bobby picked me up at the airport that night. And the next morning, he woke me up and said, I got to go to a session. So he said, you want to go? And I said, yeah, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, fresh out of Louisiana. So I get to the studio, and Jay Winning was producing, and it was Bill Champlin, Bobby Kimball, and Tom Kelly singing a Marie and Cherie Curry's album. And I'm wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, sitting in the back watching this double-scale session. And the producer stops and goes, man, he said, I sure hear a 4th part on this. He goes, well, see that guy sitting behind you? I said, yeah, he sings his ass off. So he says, yeah. So we go in there, and Champlin gets on the piano and hits the high note. And he goes, sing this part. And I nailed it. So I made double scale my first day in L.A. And David Page walked in on that session and heard me singing with those guys. And that's how I got the gig.
Wow. That's an awesome story. I love that. So, I mean, just as a little tangent question for me, being a singer, back in the 80s, you're hitting notes, but it's 2023 and you're still hitting them. So what's your regimen there, buddy? How do you care for that voice? Or are you just blessed with a voice that's still strong after all these decades?
Kind of both.
No, that's it. That's fair.
Yeah, and I'm not a hard partier, so, I don't smoke. I don't drink that often, and when I drink, it's pretty moderate. I'm just not a late night partier. I'm an early bed, early morning riser.
You're a working musician.
I am.
You know what? I think it's an important takeaway from, because we talk, this podcast is designed for tribute bands, entertainers, and a lot of them are in that peripheral where they're professionals, but they're still kind of on that slightly amateur side in the sense that they don't make a living at it. And so when they get a chance to talk to somebody who essentially makes a living playing an instrument or singing or producing or making music on some level, you're going to find that most of the guys that have been able to do it for a long, long time really treat it like a business, and they take it seriously, and they're not partying, and they're not all Aerosmith and Van Halen tearing hotel rooms apart. Mm-hmm. It's there's a working mindset, especially among you folks, that I've started to get to know that Nashville world, because that's new to me. And having gone to play some, and full disclosure, Jim's played some shows with my tribute band, and we couldn't appreciate it more. So we've been able to open those doors in Nashville. That's the thing that struck me, is so many people that take it seriously and put the time in, put the work in, and take care of themselves. And so all these years later, you're still able to perform at that level. I think it's amazing. So So Jim, where did you fit into this? What's your role? Did you start from day one?
Yeah, I mean, I as far as I know, yeah. Duncan and I have known each other decades. Worked together in a lot of sessions together, and I guess when he and the other guys were talking about putting the band together, there were a couple roles they needed to fill. One being the lead vocal, which Keith got that, and they needed a secondary keyboard player. And I think it may have been Johnny Brown who had done a couple gigs with me sometime in that time, and for some reason thought of me. So
because you're great, that's why I thought of you.
Well, thank you. But I had already known Duncan and Scott Williamson, our drummer. I knew those two guys. So it kind of was like, well, yeah, let's try this. This will be fun. So, so I've been in on the ground level, but it wasn't my idea to start the band.
Gotcha.
So,
so back to a thing you said a little bit, Duncan, was just tribute bands in general. There was a certain point in, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, somewhere around there, maybe 12, maybe 15, that all of a sudden that started to become a thing. And it's only gotten to be more of a thing as being in a tribute band. Mm-hmm. And so you can go to a lot of venues, a lot of clubs now, or places that used to book variety bands, original bands, cover bands, dance bands, rock bands. Almost all of them now are putting some level of tribute, or have gone almost exclusively all tributes. What do you guys think became the reason or the draw? Why did tributes become the trend and are still so strong at this point?
Well, and you guys can weigh in too, but I think it had a lot to do with the music from the 70s and the 80s still resonating with people decades later. And I think the thing with a lot of tribute bands, certainly the better ones, certainly like yours, Roger, is the detail of the performance. So much effort is put into the detail of the performance and replicating those records that in many, many cases, the tribute band is a better representation of what the original band was back in that day, or certainly the way they sound now. And I think people just like to hear what they're comfortable with, what they're familiar with, and they want to hear it the way they remember it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think also from our point of view with putting the band together, I knew every note of every one of those songs that Toto had, right? So, and I think the general audience is that way too. They may not know it, but they know every lyric. They know every note in the guitar solo. It's part of their DNA. It's become part of their DNA, Right. So that's the way they want to hear it. And that's always been, we run into this with the band sometimes that we may want to reinterpret little things here or there. And I'm the idiot that always disagrees and says, no, we should do it like the original because that's what it was. But that's just the way I feel about it. But I think to answer your question, that's a lot of the rise in the tribute bands is people, it's part of who they are. And to be able to go into their town and hear what means so much to them and hear it live and hear it done faithfully and with respect is they eat that up. And I think it's great. And for us, just playing these songs every time we rehearse, which is extremely rarely, it's a blast to play these things. I forget each time we come up and do it again. I think this is incredibly fun doing these songs. So
is that, and I agree with you on all of that. And I think that's why maybe even in the world of tributes, it's kind of the 70s and 80s bands that are making the biggest impacts.
Right.
And I know there's go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I'm sorry, I lost my thought about that. I'm sure you guys would agree. It gets down to the songwriting as well.
Oh, absolutely.
In those decades, that's why the stuff is memorable to the people the way that it is, because it's so well structured, so well written that it sticks.
It sticks. It has longevity. Yeah.
Well, you're picking it. Yeah, you picked a high. I mean, you picked a high demand artist to tribute, and honestly, a lot of those 70s bands were built out of studio musicians, and they were guys that came out of jazz backgrounds and progressive kind of backgrounds, but then the radio was looking for that I mean, honestly, I use yacht rock. A lot of people will use yacht rock as kind of a cornball thing, but I'm like, man, there's a lot of musical production in a lot of that stuff.
Oh, heavens,
Oh,
yes.
And those were guys that were all kind of like back in the Motown days when the 5 or 6 guys would sit down and go, okay, let's arrange Nowhere to Run for Martha and the Vandellas. And they sat in a room by lunchtime. They had the song completely arranged because they all came from a world of being jazz and freeform and making stuff up. And those 70s studio guys kind of came out of those same worlds. I mean, you've got, just powerhouse musicians in these bands, Toto and Steely Dan, and they all kind of had that same umbrella that they would all play under a lot of times. But you didn't have the singer in place. So what made you pick Toto? Was it just a love for the music of Toto versus another type of 70s or 80s band?
Yeah, like I said before, it was just that I had already experienced literally years of being in the studio with my friends playing snippets of their songs, because being that they were studio musicians, obviously we related to it 100% and gravitated towards just absorbing everything they did because they were the best at what they did. Yeah. And as everyone knows, the members of the band played on thousands of other recordings for hundreds of other artists.
Yeah.
And I ate up every bit of that. Everything I could find that Lukather played on, that Porcaro played on, all that. I bought every bit of it and listened and learned every note because they were my mentors, idols, whatever the word is, and the groove that they played with. I tried to adopt all of that into what I did as a studio player in Nashville. It definitely was part of my education. So,
yeah. Well, you know what? Let's not waste any time. Seems like a perfect moment. Let's dive into one of your tracks right now. So this is you guys doing Hold the Line by Toto. The band is called Child's Anthem. So let's check the video out real quick. And if you're only listening and you're not watching, hopefully you can hear it real good on your stream and enjoy it.
It's not in the way you say you care.
it's a great sounding band, and this is a venue in Nashville. It looks like.
Yeah, that's Third and Lindsley.
Third and Lindsley.
Yeah.
Know it well.
Yes.
So look, I'm a Toto fan, but I would say I'm probably that casual radio Toto fan, and so I know the main hooks of the songs, and I know the main hits. I know Hold the Line, I know Rosanna, I know Africa, 99, Georgie Porgy, and then at that point, I'm probably starting to go, gee, what else do I know? So when you guys are putting this together, I assume part of the role here is to create a show that a casual fan's going to know. So what kind of work goes into the sets or the songs that you picked? How deep do you go, kind of thing?
Well, we don't go that deep, and I think, as you well know, Roger, people want to hear the songs they know, so you can't really go into the deep cuts too much. Thankfully, Toto, believe it or not, I think a lot of people that come and hear us are much like yourself. They know maybe 5 or 6 songs from whatever, but I think the feedback we continually get is, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was Toto. Oh, I forgot about that song. Yeah. That's there's probably another 5 or 6 songs that have left their brain. Yeah, and as soon as they hear it, they remember it and they love it. So yeah, you don't have 2 hours worth of hits with Toto, but it's not hard to fill up an hour and a half for sure. And we really don't do deep cuts as much as we've talked about it and occasionally think, hey, it might be fun to do that song. You really have to stick to what the hits are.
The greatest hits album, essentially. Exactly. Yeah, and we had to struggle with that a little bit too, because Huey Lewis, the News Greatest Hits, times out at about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. So we got to fill another 45 to sometimes up to 2 hours. And luckily we find some concert footage, some extended sections. So when you were talking about Duncan, you're talking about we're going to default to nailing the version that everybody kind of knows and not get too free-formy on it. We do the same thing. We treat it as the radio version. If there was a hit version on the radio, that's the version we're going to play as true as possible, because that's what the casual fan knows. Right. If they know it, that's what they know. Now, if there's an outro, if there's something that does kind of just free form, goes to a fade out, okay, guitar player, you can take a solo and do whatever you want there, as long as it fits what we're doing. Drummer could do something. Maybe we extend something there, or maybe they did something live. Do you, when you create the show, how many gigs would you do a year? I know you all have other projects and you're all doing other things. So how much does Child's Anthem do a year?
Well, it varies, but to be honest, because of our schedules and the fact that some of us played for other artists and we having to keep ourselves available for that gig, I don't think we do, maybe 3, 4. Does that sound about right? If that?
That sounds really depressing, but it's true.
It's terribly depressing. And we're hoping we can do more than that, Raj, but it's tricky.
Well, when it's not your primary source of income, it's not your primary gig. We have some folks locally that do a Steely Dan tribute. They call themselves the Steely Damned, and they're pretty amazing. The horn section is called the Damned Horns.
That's awesome.
So it's made up of, there's probably 16 people on stage, and it's made up of, half a dozen different bands, if not more. Yeah. They play about 2 to 3 times a year, and it's usually on a 3-day weekend, and they'll play the Sunday night. So they only play 2 to 3 times a year. It's a very special event kind of thing, because everybody's busy. And so it's a big highlight. So, I understand that the schedule is what it is. If you guys don't mind, either who you've played with in the past, who you currently play with, if you want to give me a little bit of a shout out to some of the artists you currently play with, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. I currently play with Jim Messina. And
I've heard of him.
You know him. I am very fortunate to get to work with one of the guys in your band, Steve Nieves. And Steve and I play with Messina. And I was fortunate enough this past year to do about 9 shows with Kenny Loggins. And for the prior 25, 30 years, I've just been in Nashville working on a lot of custom projects, working on a lot of label projects, doing a lot of publishing demos. I was kind of a studio rat. And that's my background. Duncan has quite a lengthy one as well. Go ahead, Duncan.
Are we still talking about? Oh, never mind. Sorry. We can edit that out. I'm sure. I was. I'm one of the unicorns. I guess that's what you call it. I was born and raised in Nashville.
You are a unicorn.
So one of the few who's just stuck it out in the music business from day one. My parents were both musicians in the symphony here in town, so it was what I was going to do. So I got out of college. Went on the road to pay my dues. I worked with Jerry Reed and then Amy Grant and then Crystal Gale for about 5 years. And with Crystal's gig, I was doing more and more sessions in town and started kind of getting tired of turning session work down. So I left her job in 1990 to do sessions full time. And I've done it ever since then. So,
yeah. Got it.
I had been going out on the road with the fabulous singer-songwriter Steve Wariner. Did that for about 10 years along the way during the session career, because he would only do weekends, and it was fantastic to go out and play loud for a change.
Right.
And before putting the headphones back on. But that's my story.
Got it. And you're sticking to it.
Yes, sir.
And then,
Keith?
of course, Keith got to play with Toto.
Yeah, right. So what have you done since then? Anything? No? Okay.
Well, I was real fortunate because, singing with Toto, I got called for a lot of session work that I said, well, you never heard me. He said, doesn't matter. Good enough for Toto, good enough for us. So
yeah.
I sang.
Yeah, that's a wonderful byproduct of that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I sang in Rocky IV, Staying Alive, Summer Rental with John Candy, Stewardess School with Donnie Most.
Donnie Most.
Donnie Most from Happy Days.
That was
Happy Days.
Ralph Mouth and Happy
Yeah.
Days.
Right.
And so I was fortunate. I'm still getting residuals from Rocky IV, so that was nice. Got to sing with Vince DiCola and Frank Stallone.
Yeah. That's you know what, I love that kind of stuff, man. When people kind of will mention a non-A-list kind of thing or performer, I'm like, dude, I'm impressed with all of that. I just think it's great that you're making a living. I mean, that to me is like the big thing, is you're doing what you want to do and you're making a living at it. Not everything's going to be Toto. And this is not disparaging Frank Stallone or Donnie Most. They're working and making money too. I'm more impressed with the guys that are the meat and potatoes working kind of folks, quite honestly. I think it's fascinating too, that with all of this talent, with all of this stuff on the resumes, that you do see tribute as a worthwhile type of project to be involved in.
Oh, sure.
And I mean, you would probably, I kind of travel in this world a lot and all around the country, and I'll hear from a lot of musicians that really will look down on it and kind of go, oh man, you're just in a tribute band. You're in a cover band. It used to just be you're in a cover band. Right. Oh, you're playing weddings and corporate gigs. What a hack, kind of way to make a living. Or now you're in a tribute band. So it's a hack kind of thing. It's a shtick. And I'm going, man, I don't know about you guys, but I've really only seen high quality Vegas level,
right,
Broadway level theatrical productions,
Right.
Now, a band like Toto or the Eagles or Steely Dan, or it's not too critical what the look is. You don't have a signature look that you need, but man, you better be nailing it musically.
Well, that's
what that's all about.
Yeah. That's absolutely the truth. We're fortunate in that there's not so much a look that has to go with the band as much as the sound. And we are sticklers, as Duncan told you, sticklers about the sound.
I have to say, because the guys that I'm playing with in this band, each and every guy is amazing musician. And I literally feel like I'm singing with Toto again in the lead role.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's good.
Every one of these guys,
you are nailing it. Yeah, musically, you're nailing it. So it's it's very much right there in the wheelhouse of that stuff. And at a place like Third and Lindsley or playing around Nashville, I would imagine half that audience are pro musicians. So
that's just it. Right?
You got to bring it.
That's exactly it, Roger. In this town, if you're going to go out, if you dare to go out and say you're a tribute to Toto or it's Steely Dan or any of those, you better have it together, because there's a ton of guys standing out there just watching you, waiting for you to make a mistake.
Oh yeah.
We did a couple of Nashville shows over the last couple of years, and I remember distinctly one guy coming up to one of the shows afterwards. He goes, "Okay, so I heard it was going to be Huey Lewis and the News." He goes, "I love Huey Lewis and the News." So I saw the photo and some video, and I went, "All right, well, we'll see." He goes, "You stepped out on stage." He went, "All right, well, he looks like him." He goes, "I better see if he sounds like him." He goes, and within a verse and a chorus, he went, "All right, he sounds like him. This is going to be fun."
No.
So, there's a little bit of that kind of, you got to bring it. And with a band like Toto, with a band that's at that level of musicianship, you got to have pros on stage. You got to have quality people. The nice thing is kind of like what you were saying, Keith, that I sang with Toto on my resume kind of puts you at the front of the line in a lot of situations compared to others. Being a Toto tribute is going to kind of filter out the type of musicians that are going to even say, if you need somebody, let me know. Because some guys are going to go, yeah, I'm not at that level. I'm not even going to offer my services to those guys.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's true. And, to kind of tie back to how many shows a year you do, in our case, trying to sub out one of our chairs is almost not worth it. You're never going to find anybody willing to put in that kind of homework for one show. You know what I mean? To sub out.
True. Yeah. I would never do it. If I was on the outside looking into that, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
No way.
It does seem like it would be a very tall, like you said, for a tall order. If it was, hey, we're doing 3 or 4 in the next month or whatever, that's one thing. But as a one-off, if you don't have your main guys, you're going to have to say, we have to find a different date.
Yeah.
We got to make it work. And you got a lot of calendars. That's a challenge.
Exactly it.
Roger, I thought of something you mentioned a bit ago, made me think that as far as Nashville session players go, it used to be that if you had a live gig, so to speak, on the side, in addition to your session work, you didn't talk about it. It was kind of looked down upon by the other guys. Then that changed and became, the cool thing to do was to have your big high-paying live gig as a session player. And it's filtered over now into tribute bands. These tribute bands around Nashville are loaded with A-list studio players. That's the cool thing to do now, is to be in the tribute band. So we hit that at about exactly the right
time. Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny because, kind of like you said, it's an opportunity, especially if you're in a touring band, a national band. A couple of our guys are, touring with Carrie Underwood, and they're like, it's the same show every night. I mean, it's literally the same show every night. So when we get a chance to play something different, we kind of, jump at that stuff. So they'll either have their own side projects, or they're open to playing in somebody else's project if it seems like a quality use of their time kind of thing. Or it's just for, shits and giggles. And they're like, no, I just want to play. I mean, one of the guys is in like an 80s new wavy kind of band. He's like, I just have fun. He goes, it's not making a ton of money. It's not, he goes, but it's just a kick. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, you got to have fun. If you're not having fun, why would you do it?
Right. Exactly.
Because it's certainly not, like you said, nobody's making their living at this. This is a flavor of love, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I would be remiss if I wasn't talking to a Toto tribute, and we were going to play some video and some audio, and we didn't do Africa. So they're going to go, wow, you didn't play even any little bit of Africa? So
wouldn't bother us if you did.
Before that's what you know what? That's funny. I was just going to ask you that. So you got to figure, as much as Journey tributes are killing it out there, you got to figure, like the real Journey, they're going, don't stop believing. Here it comes.
Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
And you're closing the show with it, most likely. I don't know if you're closing with Africa, but
no.
You don't close it with Africa?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But we do put it later in the show, because you're right.
Yeah,
they're coming to hear that song.
And it is, you're doing this because you love it, but let's face it is a song that you're kind of like, "Hoo boy," I I mean, when Huey Lewis was on tour in the 2000s and 2010s, and he was getting ready to do Power of Love from Back to the Future, he said, who would have thought when we wrote this song 40 years ago, we'd be playing it night after night after night after night. But
well, that's exactly it. None of them, they don't count on that. When it happens, it's happening. They're not thinking.
When it happens, it happens. You know, it's nice to get the check though. But but yeah, I hear you. But the thing is and part of my thing, and we'll get to the video in a second, everybody.
Okay.
Part of my thing with this is when people say, even when they were in cover bands, and they're like, "Oh, I hate playing, I don't know, Mustang Sally, Sweet Home Alabama, Freebird, whatever is the cliche song."
Right.
And I'm like, here's the thing: you play it every night, but the people you're playing it for,
they don't hear it.
Do not hear this song very often, not as much as you certainly think.
Right.
And so I don't care. Right. I will play Mustang Sally every single time, because you know what? They love it. And it might be the only time that husband and that wife who've been married for 40 years get up and dance all year long.
And it's kind of interesting. When we play, the session player mentality takes over at that point, which is, even if this is a bad song I'm doing in the studio, I still give it 112%, right? And it's the same way with these songs that, like Africa, whatever, I still dig in every single time we play it, right?
It's not easy. My part is not easy.
Oh, certainly not.
Africa.
Yeah.
So I sweat bullets every time we play.
There's a routine to it, and it becomes mechanical in the sense that you're like, here it comes again. Yeah. But what takes over for me within a couple of seconds of the song is how much everybody else is getting into it.
Absolutely.
And you know what? That becomes the motivation to.
That's why we do it.
To play the song. It's why we do it. All right. So with that, let's check out Child's Anthem, and this is Africa.
She's coming in 12:30 flight. The moonlit wings reflect the stars that guide me towards salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some old forgotten words or ancient melody. He turned to me as if to say, "Hurry, boy, it's waiting there for you." It's gonna take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do. I bless the rains down in Africa. Gonna take some time to do the things we never
Again, I mean, just absolutely nailing the sound.
Thank you. Those guys are pretty good.
Those guys are pretty good. I would go see them.
Yeah.
Child's Anthem is the name of the tribute. So when and where the calendars work, and it happens to be a date that you're in Nashville or they're near you, you definitely want to check these guys out. Where will they find you online? So give me like websites and social media.
Well, the website is www.childsanthem.com, one word. You could find us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Child's Anthem, the music of Toto. And I think that's
well, the Facebook page is loaded with videos as well.
That's right. That's right. We're on Instagram. You can find, we're not hard to find.
Child's Anthem, the music of Toto, is what you'd want to search for online, and you'll find him. Right. Absolutely phenomenal musicianship, talent, vocals, clearly. You don't get much better than a guy who sang with Toto.
Right.
And you know what, guys? I really appreciate you taking the time. Just on a personal note, Jim, thanks for sitting in with us when we need you.
Oh,
we appreciate
happy to do it. That's a
It
hard
means-
gig too, by the way. Very hard gig.
It's a lot of fun, and I just so appreciate the connections we've been able to make out there in Nashville. I will try to talk my wife into moving there at some point, but
There you go.
not quite happening yet. So, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go out with Child's Anthem here, the music of Toto. Jim, Keith, Duncan, thanks so much for your time, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Everybody enjoy your week. We'll send you out with some more Toto here. Child's Anthem, the music of Toto. Enjoy your week, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll do it for today's show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Really means a lot to me. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, email me at roger@tributebandpodcast.com. Or if you have questions for future guests, you can email me as well. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching the Ultimate Tribute Band Podcast. Please like, subscribe, share, tell somebody about it. Talk to you soon.